Our brownstone in Boston always felt like a sanctuary, a quiet testament to the life Mark and I had meticulously built. From the framed photos of Mia's first steps to the worn armchair where I'd read countless bedtime stories, every corner hummed with a warmth I once believed was unbreakable. Mark, with his sharp mind and even sharper suits, was the architect of our public success, his law career skyrocketing, while I was the quiet, steadfast foundation, ensuring everything else flourished. My own aspirations, once vibrant brushstrokes on a canvas I imagined for myself, had subtly shifted, blending into the background of his rising star. I'd poured my energy into creating a home, fostering Mia's bright, curious spirit, and managing the intricate ballet of Mark's demanding schedule. It wasn't a sacrifice I regretted, not then, because his triumphs felt like ours, his joy a reflection of the security and love we shared. The upcoming high school reunion had sparked an unusual buzz of excitement in our household. For weeks, Mark had talked about reconnecting with old friends, reminiscing about simpler times. I found myself caught in his enthusiasm, picturing a night of laughter, shared memories, and a chance to proudly stand beside the man who had become everything I'd ever dreamed of. I bought a new dress, spent hours deciding on the perfect hairstyle, and even practiced a few witty anecdotes in front of the bathroom mirror. It felt like a fresh start, a celebration of how far we'd come since those awkward teenage years. As we walked into the grand ballroom of the Omni Parker house, the air thrummed with the cacophony of reconnecting voices and nostalgic music. Mark's hand found mine, a familiar, comforting squeeze, and for a moment, the world felt perfectly aligned. We mingled, exchanged pleasantries, and laughed at old jokes. But as the evening wore on, a subtle shift began to prick at my awareness. It started with the way Mark's eyes seemed to linger a fraction too long on Sarah, my former classmate with the bright smile and effortlessly elegant demeanor. She was radiant, I had to admit, having recently returned to Boston after a successful career abroad. I noticed their conversations, though brief, carried a certain hushed intensity, a shared glance that seemed to hold a secret language. It was nothing overt, no blatant flirtation, just a quiet, almost imperceptible hum of familiarity that made a tiny knot form in my stomach. I dismissed it as reunion nostalgia, the rekindling of old friendships, yet the unease persisted. A faint, discordant note in what was supposed to be a symphony of joy. The unease was a small shadow, but it grew as the night deepened, morphing into a cold, insistent tremor. Mark had excused himself to the restroom, leaving his jacket draped over the back of a gilded chair. He'd mentioned earlier about expecting an urgent client call and asked me to grab his phone from his inner pocket if it rang. A simple act, a routine gesture of wifely assistance that suddenly felt like a fateful pull. My hand slid into the soft lining, bypassing the phone, and instead, my fingers brushed against a thick stack of folded paper. Not bills, not business cards. These felt different. A sudden, irrational surge of adrenaline made my heart pound against my ribs. Hesitantly, I withdrew them. A cluster of envelopes, addressed to Sarah, in Mark's unmistakable, elegant script. My breath hitched. The ballroom's cheerful cacophony faded into a distant hum, my vision narrowed to the damning words peeking from one unsealed envelope. My dearest Sarah. Each letter, each curling stroke, screamed betrayal. My hands trembled as I pulled out the first one, my eyes scanning, then devouring the lines. Asterisk. Every moment away from you is torture, my love. I can't wait for the day we don't have to hide. Our future, just you and I, is all I dream of. Asterisk, I read, my mind reeling. Another and another. Asterisk. Remember our weekend in Nantucket? The scent of your hair, the way you laugh. Those are the moments that truly make me feel alive. With you, I am whole again. And then, the one that shattered everything. A detailed account of a shared anniversary. The very weekend Mark had claimed to be at a conference out of state. Asterisk. Our anniversary, my darling. Thank you for making it the most exquisite day of my life. Our secret will be our strength. Asterisk. The words burned through me, searing my eyes, my soul. The shock was a physical blow, stealing the air from my lungs. Disbelief warred with a terrifying certainty. Mark. My Mark. With Sarah. Not a fleeting glance. Not a reunion flirtation. But a deep, insidious affair. Woven into the fabric of our lives. Masquerading as truth. The security. The love. The shared future I had envisioned. It all crumbled into a pile of ashes, replaced by a volcanic rage so potent it surprised me. There was no processing, no quiet contemplation, just a raw, primal need for the world to witness this ugliness. This couldn't be a private sorrow. Not here. Not now. My body moved before my mind consciously registered the decision. A cold, fierce resolve hardened my spine. My gaze swept across the room, locating Mark by the bar, laughing with a group of old classmates, and Sarah, a little too close to him, her smile bright and unburdened. They looked like the perfect couple. Carefree. Complicit. I walked towards the stage where the DJ was packing up, the microphone still standing. My heels clicked a furious rhythm on the polished floor, a drumbeat for the impending storm. A few heads turned, curious. The music died down. I reached the microphone, my hand surprisingly steady as I adjusted its height. My voice, when it came, was shockingly calm, though a tremor of pain vibrated beneath each word. "Excuse me, everyone," I began, the words ringing clearly through the suddenly quiet ballroom. A few more curious glances, then whispers. Mark and Sarah's heads snapped towards me, their smiles freezing. I just wanted to share something truly special that I discovered tonight. A collection of love letters. A ripple of confusion, then polite chuckles, spread through the crowd. This was supposed to be a heartwarming anecdote, perhaps a tribute to my husband. Oh, how wrong they were. I held up the letters, letting them flutter slightly. Mark's face went white, Sarah's eyes widened in horror. "These letters," I continued, my voice gaining strength, "were written by my husband, Mark, to our dear classmate Sarah." A collective gasp swept through the room, followed by a stunned silence so profound you could hear a pin drop. Faces contorted with shock and dawning comprehension. I saw former teachers, old friends, even some of Mark's colleagues from his law firm, their eyes wide, fixed on me. I began to read, my voice clear and deliberate. Each word a hammer blow. "My dearest Sarah, every moment away from you is torture, my love. I can't wait for the day we don't have to hide. Our future, just you and I, is all I dream of." I paused, letting the words hang in the air, watching Mark slump, his eyes pleading. Frantic, Sarah's hand flew to her mouth, her face a mask of scarlet shame. I continued, relishing the raw silence, the growing outrage. "Remember our weekend in Nantucket? The scent of your hair, the way you laugh? Those are the moments that truly make me feel alive. With you, I am whole again." My gaze locked onto Mark, then swept to Sarah, who looked as if she wanted the floor to swallow her whole. "And finally," I announced, my voice laced with a bitter triumph. "This gem, our anniversary, my darling. Thank you for making it the most exquisite day of my life. Our secret will be our strength." The dam broke. Whispers erupted into a furious murmur, then angry shouts. People pointed. Flashbulbs from cell phones began to pop. I saw old friends shake their heads in disgust, some even turning their backs on Mark and Sarah. The air crackled with hostility. Mark, finally galvanized by public humiliation, lunged towards the stage. His hand outstretched, a desperate plea forming on his lips. Sarah, tears streaming down her face, started to bolt for the nearest exit, but I wasn't done. "This," I proclaimed, holding the letters aloft for everyone to see, "is the man I married. This is the friend I welcomed into my home. And this is the truth they tried to bury." The ballroom descended into utter chaos, a maelstrom of shock, condemnation, and flashing lights. But amidst the clamor, A profound, chilling clarity settled over me. The pain was still there, a gaping wound. But something else had been forged in its fire, an unshakable resolve. This was only the beginning. The abrupt silence of our brownstone, after the chaotic symphony of the ballroom, felt less like peace and more like a vacuum. Mark had followed me out, his desperate pleas dying on his lips as I hailed a taxi, leaving his car, his dignity, and a substantial part of his reputation behind. The ride home was a blur of silence, punctuated only by the rhythmic thud of the tires on the asphalt, and the dull ache behind my eyes. He tried to speak, once or twice, a pathetic whimper about misunderstanding or a moment of weakness. But the words caught in his throat under the weight of my frozen glare. Once inside, the air thrummed with unspoken accusations. Mark sagged onto the living room sofa, his usually impeccable suit disheveled, his face ashen. He ran a hand through his hair. A gesture I once found endearing, now repugnant. "Clara, please," he began, his voice hoarse. "Let me explain. It's not what you think. Sarah, she just, save it, Mark." I cut him off, my voice surprisingly steady, devoid of the tremor I expected. The fury that had propelled me onto that stage hadn't dissipated. It had simply crystallized into something colder, sharper, infinitely more dangerous. I read the letters. Every sickening word. "Don't insult me further by trying to lie." He looked utterly defeated. Yet still, a flicker of self-preservation sparked in his eyes. It was a mistake, a moment of madness. I was under so much pressure. With work, with everything. You know how demanding my career is. He gestured vaguely, as if his burgeoning law career somehow justified the depth of his betrayal. "I still love you, Clara. You're my wife, Mia's mother. This can be fixed." My mind, however, was already operating on a different plane. His words, once capable of soothing me, now sounded like hollow echoes in a deserted chamber. Pressure? My own aspirations had been neatly folded away, tucked into the recesses of my mind, to ensure his time's career soared. I had nurtured our home, raised our daughter, built a serene sanctuary so he could conquer the world, and this was my reward. "Fixed?" I echoed, the word tasting like ash. "You think this is a broken vase that can be glued back together? You didn't just break my trust, Mark. You shattered our foundation. You decimated everything we built, brick by painstakingly laid brick." His pleas continued, growing more frantic, more desperate. He spoke of our shared history, of Mia, of the years we'd spent together, painting a picture of a relationship that had existed only in my naive imagination. With each word, I felt a layer of emotional attachment peel away, replaced by a chilling clarity. This wasn't about love anymore, or even about hatred. This was about survival. Mia, innocent and oblivious in her bed upstairs, was the only thing that mattered. Her future, and mine, hinged on my ability to navigate this wreckage. I walked past him, a phantom in my own home, towards the kitchen, my steps measured and deliberate. The cold tile floor felt like ice beneath my bare feet. My phone was still clutched in my hand, a silent witness to the night's unraveling. My brother, David, had called twice, and my mother once. I'd ignored them, needing this moment of stark, brutal reality to sink in, to fuel the engine of my resolve. Now, it was time to move. My fingers flew across the screen, not to call family, not yet. My focus was razor sharp, cutting through the emotional fog. I typed "Best Divorce Lawyer Boston." A name immediately stood out: Mara Caldwell. Her firm was renowned, her reputation as fierce as it was formidable. She didn't just win cases, she redefined outcomes. It was almost 2 a.m., but I didn't care. I found her office number and sent a concise, impersonal email outlining the bare facts. Urgent consultation required. Public exposure of infidelity at high school reunion. Need immediate counsel regarding divorce and child custody. Clara Jensen. I hit send. A tremor of satisfaction running through me. Then, and only then, did I call my brother. David, I said, my voice cracking for the first time that night. It's over. Everything. His sleepy concern immediately sharpened into protective fury when I briefly explained. He promised to be there in the morning, along with Mom. They would be my shield, my anchor. A profound exhaustion washed over me. But it was tempered by a strange, unsettling strength. The raw grief and blinding anger were still there, simmering beneath the surface. But I was no longer a victim, I was a strategist. Every tear I hadn't shed, every sob I'd suppressed, every agonizing breath I'd taken, was transforming into an unyielding resolve. Mark had believed he could live a double life, that his secrets were safe. He had underestimated the woman he married. The quiet foundation who, when pushed, would not crumble, but would instead rise. Armed with a chilling, calculated determination, the storm had broken, but the real battle was just beginning, and I intended to win. Sleep was an indulgence I couldn't afford, not when a war had just been declared. The first light of dawn, gray and indifferent, crept through the kitchen window as I methodically poured myself a cup of lukewarm coffee. Mark was still slumped on the sofa, a pathetic, snoring heap. His presence was an irritating hum, but no longer a source of pain. My thoughts were crystal clear, unclouded by doubt or sentimentality. My resolve, hardened by the betrayal, now had a singular, brutal focus: to dismantle the elaborate lie he had built. My first target was obvious: Mark's digital life. I retrieved his work laptop from his brief bag, recalling his careless habit of leaving it unlocked. His phone, which he'd clutched even in his sleep, was more challenging. I carefully pried it from his grip, my fingers brushing his. There was no tremor, no aversion, just a detached precision. His passcode, Mia's birthday, was a bitter irony. Hours passed in a silent, grim excavation. I delved into his emails, his messaging apps, his cloud storage. What I unearthed was a chilling mosaic of deceit, meticulously constructed over what felt like an eternity. The first email to Sarah, a casual catching-up message, dated back almost 2 years. 2 years. 2 years of stolen moments, whispered promises, and a parallel life I had been utterly oblivious to. It wasn't a moment of madness as he'd claimed. It was a deliberate, calculated campaign of betrayal. I found text messages exchanged between them, mundane on the surface, but laced with a secret language. Long day at the office, he'd text me, while simultaneously sending Sarah. Counting down the minutes until I see you, missing your laugh already. Or one particularly brutal exchange. Sarah, is your conference still on for our anniversary weekend? Mark. Confirmed. Tell the kids I'll be home late. My heart is already with you. The sheer audacity, the casual cruelty, made my stomach clench. Every casual lie he'd told me, every late night at the office, every distant phone call, now clicked into place with sickening clarity. Our shared memories, our family dinners, Mia's milestones, they were all tainted by the knowledge that he had been living a double life. The financial records painted an equally damning picture. I logged into our joint bank accounts, tracing a clear financial trail of their affair. There were recurring charges for a boutique hotel in Nantucket, the very weekend he claimed to be at a conference, expensive dinners at restaurants I'd never been to, for two, always paid for with the joint credit card. Extravagant gifts, not for me, but clearly for Sarah, disguised as client entertainment on expense reports. He hadn't just betrayed our marriage, he had siphoned our shared resources to fund his infidelity. The cold, hard numbers were irrefutable, undeniable proof of a deliberate, sustained affair. Each piece of evidence was a fresh stab, yet with each stab, my resolve grew harder. The initial waves of pure grief and searing anger began to subside, replaced by a cold, surgical determination. I felt less like a heartbroken wife and more like an investigator, meticulously building a case. Every screenshot, every highlighted transaction, was a brick in the wall I was constructing, a barrier between my past and my future. When Mara Caldwell's assistant called to confirm my urgent appointment that afternoon, I felt a surge of grim satisfaction. I packed my laptop, a thick file of printouts, and the damning letters, feeling a strange mix of profound exhaustion and powerful readiness. This wasn't just about ending a marriage anymore. It was about ensuring that every single one of his lies, every hidden cost of his betrayal, would be brought into the harsh light of justice. The battle had just gotten its first weapon, and it was loaded with incontrovertible truth. Mara Caldwell's office was a study in restrained power, sleek, minimalist, with awards gleaming subtly from hidden shelves. She listened to me, her sharp eyes missing nothing as I recounted the reunion, presented the letters, and laid out the meticulously gathered digital and financial evidence. Her gaze, cool and assessing, flickered over the printouts, pausing on the hotel receipts and the damning text exchanges. When I finished, the silence in the room was heavy, but not uncomfortable. It was the silence of a seasoned general reviewing battle plans. "You've been remarkably thorough, Clara," she said, her voice smooth but firm. "This isn't just a discovery, it's a meticulously documented case of marital misconduct and financial deception. My advice is immediate and decisive." She leaned forward, her expression hardening. "First, we freeze him out. Today, we will initiate a transfer of all available funds from your joint accounts into a new, separate account in your name only. We'll also close off his access to all joint credit cards. Given your findings, we have ample justification for securing these assets. Massachusetts is an equitable distribution state. This means the court will divide marital property fairly, though not necessarily equally, taking into account each spouse's contributions, both financial and non-financial, and any marital misconduct." A cold thrill shot through me. This was it. The first strategic blow. "Can we do that? Without his consent?" With this evidence, she tapped the pile of printouts, and the public nature of his infidelity. "Yes. We can argue for immediate protective measures. He's actively misused marital funds to facilitate an affair. We will paint a clear picture of him as a financial risk to the family, especially concerning Mia's future." She then meticulously outlined the path ahead. A petition for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences, but backed by a compelling narrative of his egregious actions. "We will seek sole physical custody of Mia, given his reckless behavior and demonstrated lack of judgment. For financial assets, we'll aim for a significant portion, reflecting your sacrifices to support his career and the financial drain his affair imposed. We'll also pursue spousal support to ensure your financial stability as you re-establish your own career." As Mara spoke, outlining the legal labyrinth with chilling precision, I felt a strange sense of detachment. The emotional raw wound was still there, a dull throb, but it was being cauterized by purpose. This wasn't about vengeance, not entirely. It was about justice, about protecting Mia, and about reclaiming my own narrative. Back home, the house still felt like a shell. Mark was gone, likely to work, completely oblivious to the financial earthquake rumbling beneath his feet. I called my brother, David, his earlier messages having gone unanswered. "I've just left Mara's office," I told him, my voice flat. It started. He was there within the hour, my mother, not far behind. My mother, her face etched with worry, pulled me into a fierce hug. "Oh, Clara, my sweet girl," she murmured, stroking my hair. "We're here. We're right here." David, ever the pragmatist, immediately took charge. "Right," he said, rolling up his sleeves. "What do we need to do? Accounts? Lawyers? I can help with anything. You just tell me." He sat with me, silent and unwavering, as I executed Mara's instructions, transferring funds, closing accounts and setting up new ones. It felt like severing an umbilical cord. Painful, but necessary. My mother busied herself in the kitchen, making tea, a quiet act of comfort. He used our joint credit card for Nantucket, I whispered, the words still stinging. For their anniversary. The same weekend he told me he was at a conference. David's jaw tightened. The nerve. He won't get away with this, Clara. We'll make sure of it. He immediately started researching forensic accountants, offering to cover initial consultation fees. My mother, tears welling in her eyes, squeezed my hand. Your father would be so proud of your strength, she said. You've always been resilient, my girl. This is just another mountain you'll climb. Their unwavering support was a balm, a solid foundation beneath the shifting sands of my world. The first ripple of Mark's realization came that evening. His phone call was not to me, but to David, laced with confusion and irritation. Hey, did Clara change our banking setup? My card was declined for lunch. And I can't access the joint checking account. David, following our agreed-upon script, feigned ignorance. Clara's been through a lot, Mark. You should probably talk to her. The next morning Mark's call came to me, shrill and indignant. Clara, what the hell is going on? My accounts are frozen. I can't even get gas. You can't just do this. Oh, but I can, Mark. I replied, my voice steady, devoid of emotion. Mara Caldwell, my lawyer, advised it. Consider it a down payment for the emotional distress and financial misconduct you've inflicted. And frankly, a necessary measure to protect Mia's future. It's called asset preservation in legal terms. You'll be hearing from her soon. His gasp on the other end of the line was audible, followed by a torrent of sputtering disbelief and outrage. Mara Caldwell? Are you insane? You're going to bankrupt us. You're ruining my career. You ruined your career, Mark. I countered, a chilling calm washing over me. You ruined us. I'm just cleaning up the mess you left behind. I hung up, the click of the phone a punctuation mark to the end of his financial impunity. The battle lines were drawn. He had drawn first blood. But I was about to deliver the first crippling blow. His bewilderment was a small, satisfying tremor of victory in the vast, empty space of my pain. The echo of Mark's sputtering outrage had barely faded when the real storm began, a public tempest that dwarfed our private battles. The reunion, meant to be a nostalgic gathering, had transformed into a viral sensation, a cautionary tale playing out in real time across every screen. It began with the blurry cell phone videos, snippets of my voice, calm and clear, reading the damning letters, juxtaposed with Mark's horrified face and Sarah's frantic exit. Overnight, those clips became ubiquitous, shared and dissected with relentless fervor. Number reunion rage, number cheating lawyer, number Nantucket nights. The hashtags proliferated, turning our personal tragedy into a grim, trending spectacle. Local news channels, starved for human drama, picked up the story with predatory zeal. My brief, impassioned speech on stage, caught on countless phones, was looped on morning shows. Boston lawyer exposed in reunion scandals screamed the headlines of online tabloids. One local paper ran a piece titled, The Omni Parker House Affair, Love Letters and Public Shame, detailing the scene with dramatic flair. The sheer speed and scale of the public response were disorienting. Comments sections exploded with a mixture of outrage, sympathy, and morbid fascination. Strangers weighed in, offering support, condemnation, or unsolicited advice. Many praised my courage, while others debated the ethics of public humiliation. The public backlash against Mark and Sarah intensified with each retweet and shared post. Their faces, once symbols of success and professional polish, were now plastered across the internet, synonymous with deceit. Mark, a rising star in Boston's legal community, became a pariah. His firm, facing an avalanche of negative publicity and calls for his dismissal, swiftly put him on indefinite leave, citing personal conduct issues. The legal blogs, usually reserved for discussing complex cases, were now awash with speculation about his career being irrevocably over. I saw a comment, anonymous but cutting, that read, "Justice served, Clara style. He won't recover from this." Sarah's downfall was equally swift and brutal. Her high-profile marketing job, which she'd often boasted about, evaporated within days. Her company, keen to distance itself from the scandal, issued a terse statement about maintaining professional integrity. Leaving her office with a box of belongings, her head bowed, looking utterly defeated. The woman who had radiated effortless elegance at the reunion was now a haunted figure. Stripped bare by public judgment, a strange, complex mix of emotions swirled within me. There was undeniable vindication, a fierce, primal satisfaction in seeing them face the consequences of their actions. The world knew, they couldn't hide, couldn't deny. This wasn't just a private pain anymore, it was a publicly acknowledged injustice. Yet, beneath the triumph, a profound sadness lingered, a heavy ache for the destruction. This wasn't the life I had wanted, the path I had envisioned for my family. The beautiful brownstone, once my sanctuary, now felt like a stage where a painful drama had reached its public climax, leaving behind echoes of shattered dreams. Watching their carefully constructed lives implode offered a grim sort of justice. But it wasn't joy, it was the desolate satisfaction of a surgeon who has removed a cancerous growth. Knowing the patient will survive, but also knowing the scar will remain. I found myself scrolling through the comments, not for validation, but for understanding a collective witness to my pain. Some comments truly resonated, speaking of similar betrayals, of the strength it took to stand up. These small connections, with faceless strangers, offered a strange comfort. But mostly, I saw the gaping chasm between the life I had believed in, and the messy, brutal reality now splashed across every digital screen. My brother David called, his voice booming with a mix of anger and triumph. "Did you see it? Sarah's out? And Mark's firm is in damage control mode. This is exactly what they deserve." My mother, more gently, reminded me to try and shield Mia from the worst of it. "She's too young to understand this kind of ugliness, Clara." I nodded, though she couldn't see me. Mia, my anchor, the reason I had fought, and would continue to fight. The public spectacle was a necessary step, a loud declaration of the truth. But the real work, the quiet, painstaking rebuilding, was still ahead. The internet might have exploded, but the fallout was far from settled. And I was only just beginning to grasp the full weight of what it meant to pick up the pieces in such a brutally transparent world. The relentless hum of notifications had quieted, the online frenzy cooling into a simmering undercurrent. Yet, amidst the digital noise, a more personal battle still loomed. The world knew, but Mark's family, who had watched our marriage blossom and my sacrifices for his career, needed to understand the full, ugly truth, not through media headlines, but through my unvarnished words. It was a strategic move, not born of malice, but of a cold, pragmatic need to ensure no one would offer him a refuge or a shield. So, I orchestrated it. A Sunday dinner at Mark's parents' sprawling suburban home, a last supper of sorts, carefully planned with Mara, who had advised me to maintain a veneer of civility. At least initially. Mark's mother, Eleanor, had sounded hesitant on the phone, sensing the unease. But I'd insisted. "There are things we need to discuss, Eleanor, as a family, for Mia's sake." That last phrase was my trump card, the one no grandparent could ignore. When I arrived, my heart thumping a steady, almost detached rhythm, Mark was already there, looking pale and defensive, nursing a drink. Eleanor, usually so effusive, was stiff, her smile strained. His father, Robert, a man of few words, offered a terse greeting, and then the door chimes, and Sarah entered. Looking utterly out of place in a dress that was too formal, her eyes red-rimmed and wary. Mark must have called her a desperate attempt at a united front, or perhaps a foolish hope that she could somehow mitigate the damage. Her presence only fueled my resolve. We sat at the polished dining table, the scent of Eleanor's pot roast filling the air, a grotesque parody of family togetherness. The small talk was excruciating, punctuated by forced smiles and awkward silences. Finally, after the main course was cleared, I placed my neatly organized folder on the table. There are some things that need to be said, clearly and without further evasion. I began, my voice steady, my gaze sweeping from Mark to Sarah, then settling on his parents. Eleanor clutched her napkin. Robert's jaw tightened. "Clara, darling. Perhaps this isn't the best time," Eleanor interjected. A placating hand raised. "No, Eleanor, the time is now," I replied, my voice firm. "You deserve to know the full extent of what your son has done. The world already does." I opened the folder, pulling out the first piece of evidence, the love letters, carefully laminated copies. "These," I stated, holding them up, "are the letters I found in Mark's jacket at the reunion. Letters to Sarah. My dearest Sarah, every moment away from you is torture, my love. I can't wait for the day we don't have to hide." I read the most damning excerpts, my voice a monotone, devoid of emotion. Allowing the words themselves to inflict the pain, Mark shifted, a pathetic whimper escaping his lips. Sarah, her face already blotchy, began to weep silently. Eleanor gasped, her hand flying to her mouth, while Robert's eyes narrowed into slits of pure fury directed at his son. Next, I laid out the financial records. This is a detailed breakdown of Mark's expenditures, paid for with our joint funds, the money I worked to save and manage. I tapped a highlighted line item, a weekend in Nantucket, for two, at a boutique hotel. The very weekend Mark told me he was at a conference out of state, their anniversary, as he so lovingly called it in these letters. I then presented the screenshots of the text messages, the casual cruelties, the lies woven into the fabric of his everyday life, and these are the messages exchanged, proving this wasn't a moment of madness, but a calculated, sustained affair stretching back almost 2 years. The room was utterly silent, save for Sarah's quiet sobs. "This is all a misunderstanding," Sarah suddenly blurted out, her voice high-pitched and desperate, tears streaming down her face. She looked at Eleanor, then Robert, pleading. "Mark and we were just friends. He was going through a hard time. Clara is twisting everything." I looked at her, my expression unwavering. "You were just friends, Sarah? Then perhaps you can explain the anniversary described in these letters, or the intimate details of your friendship shared in countless texts? You helped him betray his wife and desecrate his family. You have no reputation left to salvage, not with me, and certainly not with the public." Sarah crumpled. The bravado, the desperate attempt to regain some semblance of dignity, vanished. She pushed back her chair, scraping it loudly against the floor, and bolted from the room, her sobs echoing down the hallway before the front door slammed shut. Mark made a half-hearted move to follow, but his father's voice, low and dangerous, stopped him cold. "Sit down, Mark," Robert commanded, his eyes burning with a cold fire I had never seen before. "Look at this. Look at what you've done." He picked up one of the laminated letters, his fingers trembling. This is sickening. To do this to your wife, the mother of your child. The woman who stood by you, sacrificed for you." His voice broke, thick with disgust. "You have shamed this family, Mark. You have shamed us all." Eleanor, tears now streaming down her own face, reached across the table and took my hand. "Clara, my dear. I don't know what to say. I'm so sorry. I always thought I loved you like a daughter." She squeezed my hand, her eyes filled with a grief that wasn't for her son, but for me, for Mia, for the shattered illusion. "How could you, Mark? How could you be so cruel?" Mark, stripped bare, his excuses evaporated, could only sit there, head bowed, a picture of abject humiliation. His parents, faced with undeniable, irrefutable proof, had made their choice. They had turned their backs on their son's deceit, acknowledging the profound betrayal. The silence that followed was heavy, not with tension, but with the weight of consequence. The last bastion of his comfortable life had crumbled. The truth finally had set me free, even as it devastated the family he had so carelessly broken. The echo of the slammed door, Sarah's departure, and the chilling silence that followed Robert's condemnation hung heavy in the air. A final, definitive closing of a chapter. But while that evening marked the end of Mark's relationship with his family, it was merely the prelude to the formal dismantling of ours. Mara had been precise in her timeline. The divorce petition, complete with every damning detail, was filed swiftly. Soon, the legal machine whirred to life, dragging us into the sterile, impersonal world of courtrooms and affidavits, a stark contrast to the raw, public spectacle that had ignited it all. Each summons, each legal document, was another confirmation that my life with Mark was indeed over, replaced by a meticulous, arduous process of separation. The proceedings were every bit as emotionally draining as Mara had warned. The polished benches, the stern faces of the judges, the methodical presentation of evidence, it all felt like a surgical incision into the very core of my being. I found myself sitting across from Mark in court, a man I once loved beyond measure, now a stranger whose gaze held only resentment and a desperate self-preservation. He looked gaunt, his carefully constructed facade of success completely shattered, his once sharp suits now hanging loosely on his frame. As expected, his desperation quickly morphed into aggression. Having lost the battle for public sympathy and his family's support, Mark turned his fury on me, attempting to discredit every aspect of my character and parenting. His lawyer, a slick, opportunistic man, painted me as a vengeful, emotionally unstable woman, driven by spite to destroy her husband's life and career. He accused me of financial irresponsibility, of neglecting Mia in my obsessive pursuit of revenge, and even, in one particularly cruel session, suggested that my public exposure of his affair had traumatized our daughter. Each false accusation was a fresh sting, a calculated attempt to twist my pain into pathology. He claimed my actions were not for Mia's protection, but a selfish act of public shaming, proving I was unfit to be her sole guardian. But Mara Caldwell was a force of nature. She stood by my side, an unyielding pillar of strength and legal acumen. With every baseless accusation Mark's lawyer hurled, Mara met it with cool, methodical precision, using the very evidence I had collected. When they questioned my financial management, she presented the meticulously itemized statements showing Mark's misappropriation of joint funds for Sarah. When they implied I was emotionally unstable, she calmly referred to the letters, the text messages, and the unwavering support of my family and friends, painting a picture of a betrayed wife acting with measured resolve. Mr. Jensen's counsel suggests Miss Jensen is vengeful, Mara stated during one heated exchange, her voice cutting through the tension. We suggest Miss Jensen is protective of her daughter, protective of their shared assets, and protective of her future, from a man who systematically betrayed and deceived her. The trauma Miss Jensen's daughter faces is not from her mother's courage, but from her father's profound lack of judgment and morality. She then subtly introduced the statements from my brother and mother, not directly about the affair, but about my unwavering dedication to Mia, and my meticulous handling of our home and finances over the years. The most dramatic moment came during Mark's cross-examination. Mara, with quiet authority, cornered him on the Nantucket conference. Mr. Jensen, she asked, her voice deceptively soft, can you confirm the exact dates of this alleged conference? He stammered, his eyes darting. And can you confirm that during those exact dates, our records show you booked a suite at the Bellwether Inn in Nantucket? Under the name Mr. and Mrs. Smith? His face went crimson. Is it also true that this booking, and the subsequent dining expenses, were paid for with a joint credit card? A card meant for family expenses? Not secret rendezvous with Miss Sarah Davies? Mark finally broke, muttering incoherently, his carefully rehearsed lies crumbling under Mara's relentless assault. The judge's expression, previously impassive, now held a clear note of disapproval. Throughout it all, my gaze remained fixed on the end goal. Mia. Her innocent face was my shield against Mark's venom, my focus amidst the legal jargon. Each time he tried to twist my character, to question my love for her, I felt a fresh wave of nausea, but also a renewed hardening of my core. This wasn't just about proving his guilt. It was about ensuring Mia had a stable, secure future, free from his deception and toxicity. The emotional exhaustion was immense, a heavy cloak I carried daily. But beneath it, my resolve remained unyielding, forged in the fires of betrayal and tempered by the fierce, protective love for my daughter. This brutal legal battle was not merely a fight for assets or custody. It was a fight for our right to begin again, untainted by the past. The courtroom drama, with its acrid scent of false accusations and its chillingly precise legal maneuvers, had finally faded into a fragile calm. The verdict, in essence, was delivered not just by the judge, but by the hollowed-out silence that now clung to Mark's life. His firm had officially cut ties, his once glowing professional reputation reduced to digital dust, and the silence from his parents, after that fateful dinner, had become absolute. He had lost the family home, his impressive car, even the respect of his colleagues. Every pillar of the opulent life he'd built, and that I had helped sustain, had crumbled. I knew he was effectively destitute, living off what little he could salvage, a shadow of the man who had once commanded rooms with his presence. I had expected to find a measure of peace in his downfall, a calm after the storm, but instead, there was just a profound emptiness, a weary acceptance that this was the price of truth. Then, the doorbell rang. It was a cold Tuesday evening, Mia already asleep upstairs. I wasn't expecting anyone. Through the peephole, I saw a figure I barely recognized. Mark. But not the Mark of sharp suits and confident smiles. This Mark was a ghost of his former self. His hair was unkempt, his eyes bloodshot and sunken, shadowed by days, perhaps weeks, of despair. The expensive coat he wore was wrinkled, as if he'd slept in it, and a desperate, haggard expression distorted his once handsome features. He looked like a man who had been stripped bare, every pretense and privilege peeled away, leaving only raw, exposed vulnerability. It was a stark, disturbing tableau of his complete downfall. A tremor, not of fear, but of a deep, unsettling sadness, ran through me. This was the man I had loved, the father of my child. Seeing him reduced to this pathetic state was a test of my hardened resolve, an unwelcome echo of a past I was determined to leave behind. Yet, there was no turning back. I unlocked the door, but kept the chain on, leaving only a narrow gap. "Clara," he rasped, his voice raw, barely a whisper. He looked directly at me, and for a fleeting second, I saw the desperate boy beneath the ruined facade. "Please, let me in. We need to talk." "There's nothing left to talk about, Mark," I replied, my voice flat, betraying none of the internal turmoil his appearance ignited. "No, there is," he pleaded, pressing his hand against the doorframe, his fingers white-knuckled. "Everything. I've lost everything, Clara. My job, my friends, my parents, even Sarah, she's gone. She blamed me for everything." He paused, a choked sob escaping him. "This is all because of what I did. I know that. I made a terrible, unforgivable mistake. But please, Clara, you have to believe me when I say I'm so sorry. I'm a broken man without you. Without our family." He launched into a torrent of words, a desperate litany of apologies and self-pity. "I remember the day we met, Clara, at the freshman mixer. You wore that blue dress? And you just radiated kindness. And our first apartment, remember? We painted it together, laughing at our terrible brushstrokes. We were a team. We built this life together." His voice cracked, tears streaming down his face. Please, think of Mia. She needs her father. She needs her family whole again. I've changed, Clara. This has changed me. I'll do anything. I'll go to therapy. I'll give up law. I'll get any job. Just please, let me come home. Let me fix this. I love you, Clara. I always have. Sarah. She meant nothing. It was a moment of weakness. A dark period in my life. Please. I'm begging you. Give me another chance. I can't live like this. His plea was carefully constructed, designed to tug at the deepest, most vulnerable parts of my memory. He invoked our shared history. The innocent beginnings. The sacrifices I'd made. And then, the ultimate weapon, Mia. A younger, more naive Clara might have wavered. Might have seen the broken man and felt a pang of the old love. A desire to salvage what was lost, but the woman standing behind that chained door was not that woman anymore. My heart, though it ached for the ghost of what we once were, remained steadfast. I saw not a man genuinely repentant, but a man desperate to escape the consequences of his actions, to reclaim the comfort and stability he had so carelessly discarded. His apology felt hollow, a performance for self-preservation, not true remorse. He was sorry he got caught, sorry for the repercussions, but was he truly sorry for the betrayal itself? I doubted it. The systematic nature of his deceit, the 2 years of calculated lies, the misappropriation of our funds, these were not moments of weakness. They were choices. Mia. Yes, Mia needed her father. But she needed a father who was honest, reliable, and fundamentally good, not a man who would repeatedly lie, deceive, and then try to manipulate his way back into a life he had desecrated. The trauma she would endure from a fractured home would be less than the trauma of growing up in a house built on such a toxic foundation of lies. My resolve, honed by months of painful discoveries and legal battles, did not waver. The sight of his brokenness, while pathetic, did not evoke pity strong enough to eclipse the raw scar of his betrayal. My mind, clear and sharp, knew what I had to do. My voice, when it came, was devoid of the emotion he desperately sought to evoke. It was steady, resonant with a clarity that had been forged in fire. Mark, I began, cutting through his torrent of pleas. You speak of mistakes, of a moment of madness, but this wasn't a moment, was it? It was 2 years. 2 years of calculated choices, of whispered lies, of an entire parallel life you built while I stood by your side, supporting a career you then used to fund your betrayal. His face crumpled further, his eyes wide and pleading. But I saw through it. I saw the man desperate to escape consequence, not the man truly broken by remorse for the pain he inflicted. You say you've lost everything, Mark, I continued, my voice gaining a quiet power. But you lost it the moment you decided your desires were more important than your vows, more important than our family. You destroyed your career, your reputation, your relationship with your parents. I didn't do that to you. You did. I took a deep breath, the ache in my chest a familiar companion, but no longer debilitating. This isn't about vengeance, Mark. Not anymore. This is about my freedom, my peace, and more importantly, it's about Mia's future. She deserves a life built on truth and stability, not on your carefully constructed lies and desperate appeals to a past that no longer exists. She deserves a mother who is strong, whole, and free, not one perpetually tethered to a toxic legacy. He opened his mouth to protest, to beg again, but I held up a hand, silencing him. You want another chance? You had countless chances to be honest. You chose a different path. Now, I'm choosing mine. A path free from your deceit. Free from your demands. Free to build something real for Mia and for myself. There is nothing left to fix, Mark. You broke it beyond repair. I looked at him. Not with hatred, but with a profound, weary clarity. The man I had loved, the life we had shared, was a ghost, a memory, and I was done haunting it. Goodbye, Mark, I said, my voice firm and final. With a slow, deliberate movement, I unlatched the chain and closed the door. The click was definitive, echoing through the sudden, absolute silence of the hall. It was the sound of a chapter closing, not with a bang, but with the quiet certainty of an unshakable resolve. Weeks later, the divorce decree arrived. A weighty document marking the official end. Mara had delivered on her promise. And then some. I was granted sole physical custody of Mia. A decision the judge had made unequivocally clear was in her best interest, citing Mark's reckless behavior and profound lack of judgment. The financial settlement reflected not only the marital assets we had accumulated, but also Mark's blatant financial misconduct, and my years of non-financial contributions and sacrifices. The brownstone, our home, was secured for Mia and me, a sanctuary once again. It wasn't about winning or losing anymore. It was about moving forward, unburdened by the past, charting a new course forged in strength and quiet determination. The quiet hum of the brownstone had finally settled into a rhythm of peace, a gentle cadence replacing the frantic discord of the past year. 6 months had peeled away since the divorce decree. Each week a layer shedding the remnants of betrayal, replacing raw wounds with resilient scars. Our home, once a battlefield, was now truly ours again. Filled not with the ghosts of a broken marriage, but with the vibrant energy of Mia and the quiet strength of my newfound independence. The mornings, in particular, had become sacred. Mia, now a whirlwind of 6-year-old energy, would wake me with a sleepy cuddle before we'd head to the kitchen. We'd make pancakes together on Saturdays, her small hands clumsily stirring batter while I hummed along to whatever pop song she insisted on playing. These simple, everyday rituals were the bricks of our new life, solid and full of light. My own deferred dreams, once tucked away like forgotten treasures, had begun to resurface, not as faded aspirations, but as clear, tangible goals. The legal experience I'd gained, the meticulous organization required to navigate Mark's deceit, had paradoxically opened a new path. I had accepted a consulting role with a non-profit advocating for women in difficult divorce situations, using my first-hand knowledge and newly sharpened strategic mind to guide others through the labyrinthine legal system. It was challenging, demanding work, but every victory, every woman I helped find her footing, felt like a small, profound act of reclaiming my own power. I was no longer merely supporting someone else's ambition. I was building my own, brick by thoughtful brick, and it was exhilarating. This journey of healing wasn't linear. There were still moments when a fleeting memory would prick, a sharp pang of the past, but those moments were fewer, shorter, eclipsed by a growing sense of purpose and self-discovery. I started taking evening pottery classes, molding clay with my hands, finding a meditative calm in the creative process. A stark contrast to the rigid structures of the legal world. Each imperfect, beautiful bowl I created was a small victory, a testament to my ability to shape something new from brokenness. Mia, bless her resilient spirit, thrived in this stable, loving environment. Her laughter, once sometimes overshadowed by the unspoken tension in the house, now echoed freely through the rooms. She was excelling in school, her drawings adorning the fridge, her imaginative stories filling our evenings. Her small hand, clasped firmly in mine, was a constant reminder of the profound strength that lay within me, the unwavering love that had fueled my fight. We were building something beautiful, she and I. Not just a house, but a home, a future forged in resilience and hope. Looking back, the path I'd traversed felt less like a journey and more like a descent into a chasm, followed by an arduous, hand-over-hand climb back into the light. The initial pain, a gaping wound that had threatened to consume me, had slowly, agonizingly, knit itself into a complex tapestry of scars. Each one told a story of betrayal, yes, but also of resilience, of an unyielding spirit I hadn't known existed within me. It was easy, sometimes, to get lost in the memories of the venomous accusations, the cold courtroom, or the desolate sight of Mark at my doorstep. But from this vantage point, high above the wreckage, I understood that my true triumph wasn't found in Mark's public shaming or his subsequent downfall. His ruin was merely a consequence, a byproduct of the choices he made. My victory, the profound, quiet kind, was far more personal. It was in the quiet, painstaking process of piecing myself back together, of discovering a strength I never knew I possessed. The woman who once defined her worth by the success of her family and the stability of her marriage had transformed into someone who found peace in her own autonomy, her own resilience. The old Clara, the one who had so readily tucked away her own vibrant dreams to cultivate Mark's, who had believed that love meant endless sacrifice, felt like a distant, almost foreign memory. She was naive, perhaps, but also a necessary precursor to the Clara I was now. Stronger, clearer, fiercely independent. This new Clara understood that self-worth wasn't external, bestowed by a partner or a societal role, but an inherent, unshakable truth within. Inner peace wasn't the absence of conflict, it was the ability to navigate it with integrity and emerge whole. Mia, in her beautiful innocence, had been my North Star throughout it all. Her bright eyes and infectious laughter were the constant reminders of what truly mattered. We talked, gently, about changes, about how families sometimes evolve, and I ensured her world remained full of love, stability, and joy. I watched her adapt, her small heart resilient, and poured every ounce of my effort into creating a secure haven for her. A place where the shadows of the past could not reach. Seeing her thrive, unfettered by the bitterness that had once threatened to engulf us, was a victory more precious than any court ruling. The past, with its sharp edges and aching memories, no longer held me captive. It was a chapter, irrevocably closed, its lessons learned, its pain acknowledged. My focus had irrevocably shifted. The future, once a terrifying blank slate, now shimmered with possibilities I was eager to explore. It was a future I was actively creating, not merely reacting to. A future built on the solid ground of my own making, for Mia, and for myself. Every morning now unfurled like a fresh page, gleaming with the promise of stories yet to be written. The heavy cloak of fear and uncertainty that had once draped over my shoulders had been shed, replaced by a lightness I hadn't known was possible. Each day was an invitation, not a burden, and I found myself ready, truly ready, to embrace whatever challenges and joys lay ahead. Not as a solitary act, but with Mia by my side, our laughter filling the quiet spaces. Betrayal, I realized, was a wound, but it was not my definition. It was an event that had tested my very core, yes, but how I rose from its ashes, how I chose to rebuild. That was the true measure of who I had become. The past was a brutal teacher, forging in me an unyielding clarity. Freedom wasn't just about escaping Mark. It was about finding sovereignty within myself. It was the ability to look at the shattered pieces and see not an ending, but a new blueprint for a life built on authenticity and unwavering self-respect. My inner strength, once a fragile ember, now burned bright and steady, illuminating my path, and Mia, my beautiful, resilient daughter, remained the center of my universe. Her unconditional love, a constant, pure melody in my heart, our bond, forged in the crucible of change, was unbreakable, a testament to hope and enduring affection. I stood tall, not as a victim who had sought revenge, but as a woman reborn, a testament to the powerful, transformative truth that happiness, after heartbreak, is not just possible, but brilliantly, fiercely attainable, sculpted by my own hands, for our own vibrant future.